Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FSR IndyCar series that we are going to be bringing you today. I'm Tyler Parker, and joining me today will be Felix van Delft, my co-commentator today, and I do believe we're going to be having Cameron Rodgers on camera, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to bring you the action today from lovely Watkins Glen, New York, for round one of the FSR IndyCar series. So, as hopefully most of you have followed this year, the Pro, Ace, and World Championship rounds of FSR, this is a little break that we're going to take, and we're going to get into some American-style open-wheel racing, which I'm a huge fan of, and we're going to bring up the Indy cars, basically. So we'll talk a little bit about the Indy cars, but I want to get into the track. Watkins Glen, obviously a former F1 track over here, used for the American Grand Prix many moons ago, more commonly used now. IndyCar was there recently, and more commonly used now for NASCAR events. So right now what we have is Watkins Glen. It's roughly 3.4 miles long, 5.43 kilometers long. We're going to be having a 30-lap race, or roughly 1 hour race. The race distance that we're going to cover is just over 100 miles. And Watkins Glen, as you know, has many different layouts. Well, we're going to be using the one with the boot. So anybody who is familiar with the old NASCAR layout, that usually cuts the boot right out. Well, we're going to bring that boot back, and we're going to have some fun on the whole layout of Watkins Glen International Raceway. A little bit about the cars. The Lara DW12 is the chassis that we're going to be using in road spec. Obviously, there's an oval spec because Indy cars do race around the ovals in real life, but we're not going to be doing any ovals today. It's strictly road for us. A little bit about the Lara DW12 cars. We've got an engine power of roughly 675 brake horsepower. The engines are not similar to what you would see in an F1 car a few years back, a 2.2 liter V6 turbo. So you will hear a little bit of a whine during the broadcast from those wonderful engines. Weight is roughly around 730 kilograms, and we have a dimension of the car of about 5.1 meters by 1.9 meters in length and width. And again, joining us today, we are going to be having Cameron Rodgers. He's going to be doing our race directing. My bad. Felix van Delft is going to be doing the cameras. And I'm going to be taking you on lead comms with Felix filling us in. And also Cameron Rodgers might be stopping by and helping us fill in the gaps here and there today. So I think we're going to be set for a lovely afternoon of racing here, and I'm going to go throw some questions over to my colleague Felix and get his thoughts on what we might be seeing for the race.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. I think we're gonna get some real exciting racing here at the Watkins Glen Raceway. Of course, a bit of an American style here with Formula Sim Racing, with our American president, Christopher Cobb, still in the lead. I think he decided well to take this series. We did a little winter series in 2016 with these cars, the Indy cars, which was, in my mind, one of the best winter series FSR has done up to this day. Really like these cars, and I think we will get some amazing racing here. I think we have 23 cars on the server right now, all getting ready to start their qualifying session, because qualifying has just started. Drivers are getting ready to get out of the pit lane, all lining up and getting ready to start their out laps. 23 drivers. Start of qualifying. Qualifying is 15 minutes long, so might be a bit hectic. Unlimited laps, unlike how the normal Formula Sim Racing qualifying works, at least in the last couple of seasons, where you only have 12 laps limited, so you can only do about 4 hot laps. Now there is an unlimited amount of laps the drivers can do, so they can do as many hot laps as they want. obviously if it fits in the 15-minute time frame.
And let's talk about tires a little bit here. So 2 compounds of tires tire. You think we're going to see any varying strategies through qualifying at all with that?
Sorry, can you repeat? You fell away a bit there.
Yes. So let's talk about qualifying and the tires in particular. We're going to have 2 different tire compounds. We're going to have a prime compound, which is going to be harder, give us a little bit more life, a little bit more resiliency for a longer run, versus an option tire, which is a little more pliable but wears a lot quicker than that prime compound. Do you think we're going to see any varying strategy on qualifying and even within the race? Because we do have to qualify or start the race on the tires that you qualify on.
Yeah, I think most of the people are just gonna start on the softest compound, or at least qualify on the softest compounds, because it just gives them the quicker lap time. However, maybe some people that think they might be able to still set a good lap time on the harder compound might be able to do a good lap on those tires, and then of course have the advantage in the race. The race will be 30 laps long, so there will be a pit stop in there for sure. The question is, will the harder tire benefit the long term enough to start on it and have a little bit less grip in the start of the stint? We can see Christopher Cobb, Jacob Reed and Alaric Enslin already on the harder compound. The rest of the guys so far are all on the softer compound. We're watching Lawrence Doherty, who was quickest in the practice session right now, on his first lap. And doing a good job so far, as he's quickest in the second sector.
Yeah, and again, sort of a tale of 2 track types almost a little bit there, Felix. That first sort of sector was Watkins Glen is... I guess it's very fast and not so much super technical, but you really have to have a car set up to really handle a lot of the fast, high-speed aero loading, especially through the S's section here at Watkins Glen, coming off that heavy first turn braking zone. But then as you get a little bit later into the track, it becomes very tight and very twisty in that boot section, and then leading back into basically, I guess, the little cutout, and then onto the front stretch. So having some versatility in this car setup is going to be a huge thing for me, looking for a lot of these drivers and how they're going to be able to basically handle their car for a whole 30-lap event.
Yeah, for sure. So at the moment qualifying, Quentin Benoit is the quickest by just over 0.2 of a second. He is right now on his outlap. Also a nice feature we've added to the Formula SimRacing overlay here for the IndyCar series is the track map. You can see it on the bottom right of the screen. A little bit of explanation might be of use. The green dot on the track map is the driver we're watching right now. In this case it's Quentin Benoit. Red dot is a car on a lap. A blue dot is a car on an out lap. And when you see a dot go purple, means that that driver has just set a purple sector time. You can also see the sectors on there. So nice addition to our overlay, I think, and gives you a little bit of a preview of what might come for the 2019 Formula SimRacing overlay.
Indeed, I think it's going to be really interesting, especially helping our audience understand how track position time you need to gain over that time. I think that's a great feature, and really looking forward to it, hopefully next year in the FSR career ladder.
Yeah, definitely. So currently Mark Hutchinson is quickest in the first sector. He just did a purple time there. Let's see how he finishes the rest of his lap with his relatively interesting livery. Now obviously this Watkins Glen track isn't the easiest. Some corners are a little bit blind, uphill, downhill, but it's a really nice track in my opinion, and I hope the drivers like it too, and I hope the viewers like it too. Mark Hutchinson is coming out of the final corner to finish his lap.
Oh, not too much to feel bad about that. Notwithstanding the livery there, doing a pretty good job there. Although he does get tipped there by Arguinis Riera up into P4.
Yeah.
It seems. No. Sorry, it was Lorenzen Doherty who was able to pip everybody and take a provisional pole. 1:22.8. That's a very quick time.
Yeah, great lap time from Lawrence. 3/10 quicker than the rest of the field. As we said, that Quentin Benoit goes quite a bit quicker. However, it's just not enough, half a tenth of the time of Lawrence Doherty.
Indeed. So much action on track right now as qualifying starting to end. Tan van Egmond. I hope I'm saying that right. Let me know if I'm not, Felix. But Tan van Egmond going P3 right now. So Tan able to find some speed. As then we have Miguel de los Rios going P3, and Argenis Riera also being able to pit the drivers ahead, and it's turning into quite a battle in that top five. Wasn't too long we were saying Mark Hutchinson was in P4, and he's all the way now down to P6. So Mark going to have to put in some work as he's setting up a fast lap right now as we speak. And we have the two fastest guys also, Lorenz Doherty and Quentin Benoit heading out right now. Lorenzen just coming around one of these turns. Just trying to see, it looks like, yeah, he's on the red sidewalls. All right. Couldn't tell there for a second. I was like, there's no way they're setting these times on prime tires, but I do want to see who is our fastest runner on the prime tires, and that is Thomas Vach, who is right now sitting in P7 on those prime tires. So definitely some different strategies right now being employed by some of the drivers. Though most everybody out on the option tires, which are those grippier tires that will allow you to put in a faster lap time. As we now have Chris Cobb, though, right behind Tomas on those harder prime tires, setting a time of 1:24.1, moving him up to P8.
Yeah, I'm currently just watching Lawrence Doherty do his lap. You could see him through the boot, extremely aggressive over the curbs. Managed to keep the car pointed in the right direction and keep the car stable enough to get a good exit out of the corner. But it seems that the second sector time didn't really show that stability in the car equal in the time, because wasn't able to improve there. Perhaps in the last sector as he comes out of the last corner, very close to the wall there, and he does improve his time by almost half a second. Great lap there by Lawrence Doherty. Definitely
had a compromised setup there. Probably not the greatest through that tight and twisty boot section, but very hooked up through the fast S's. I guess sort of backstretch area here on Watkins Glen, and coming through there, and then definitely taking advantage in the final sections. Oh, as Quentin just gets it all wrong on his fast lap there. So Quentin is going to have to escape back to the pits and try his luck again, unfortunately. So we have Miguel de los Rios coming around the penultimate corner, final corner as he heads out onto the front stretch here at Watkins Glen start-finish stretch. We'll see if Miguel de los Rios, and he is able to get Quentin. He's able to improve his time by about roughly a tenth of a second. Still roughly a half, almost half a second behind Lorenz Darty. But Miguel de los Rios now up into P2, so he will have a front row starting position if he's able to maintain this position till the end of qualifying.
So 3 minutes left in this qualifying session. And Mark Hutchinson just went quickest in the first sector.
Struggling for grip there, Mark Hutchinson is going around that turn. Much smoother through the, I guess that would be the toe. Up, and he pulls it over and says, no, I'm not going to be able to improve any, and finishes his lap there back into the pits. As very interested to see as Thomas Wack as he's out on the option tires now, so he might be improving his time for qualifying. We'll see. I am very interested in seeing which guys actually go out and set their times on the option tires to see how they go about starting this race.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of drivers tried to set their times on the prime tire, but realized now coming to the end of the session that it wasn't enough. The time's too slow, and they really need to set a time on the option tire to get a proper position on the track, because it's not the widest of tracks and it doesn't have the longest straight, so track position is quite important, especially after qualifying.
Indeed. You'll definitely not want to give too much up, because maybe if it was a longer race, you could potentially play that strategy, but I tend to agree with you there, Felix. Track position is going to be paramount early going.
Yeah. I just saw Houben improve his time to go up to P7. Some new faces here in the FSR 2018 IndyCar series. Nice to see some new drivers coming to FSR, just trying to gauge how the competition is here. Unfortunately, we do not have any drivers of the World Championship driving, but I guess those drivers are a bit too busy with other things here during the off season. Obviously, they've had a long season just a few weeks ago, and I think a lot of them will take a bit of rest, take perhaps a bit of time off, and prepare for next season.
Indeed, but it seems like we are getting some, I'm looking just at the chat right now, it seems like we are getting some inquiry from some drivers who do race in other top series out there, inquiring they didn't even know it was a thing. Yeah, come on over and test your mettle out here with these Indy cars in the FSR series and see where you stack up, because these these guys out here are amazing, putting in these types of laps and these types of times, just doing a great job. So, the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah, so qualifying is over. At least the time is over. The drivers that already started their laps can finish them. Tom van Egmond is on a lap, and I think he might be able to challenge maybe even Quentin Benoit for his P3 on the grid. So let's keep an eye out on him. As I said, that he has a little bit of oversteer in the third sector there through the S's. That won't help his lap time. Second sector was good. His first sector was okay. But I think this last sector is gonna kill it for him. Does it? He does get P4 from Argenis Riera.
He was able to improve on his first lap time by about a tenth or so, just under a tenth of a second. But he's going to be solidly in P4. And yes, as Felix said, that's going to conclude qualifying right now for us. And we are going to be moving on to a 10-minute warm-up session where drivers can figure out how their car is going to behave and feel on different fuel loads, potentially different tire compounds, which they will be required to use both tire compounds during this race. So we are going to be on the lookout for that as well. But just the warm-up session, shake down the car, make sure it's race ready, and then we will be getting to our 30-lap event.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're gonna just take a slight break so we can get ready for the race. 10-minute warm-up session, like Tyler said. So we'll be back in roughly 5 minutes time to prepare for the race. So for everybody watching, grab a cup of coffee, grab something to eat, to get ready, grab some popcorn maybe for lap 1. You never know what will happen here. 23 or 22 drivers on the grid going into those first couple of corners. It will be interesting to see. Anyway, we will be back in a roughly 5 minutes. So stay tuned. And we'll be right back.
And welcome back to the FSR IndyCar series here at Watkins Glen International Raceway. Again, I am your commentator, Tyler Parker, joined by Felix who's going to be co-carms and my cameraman for this evening, along with Cameron Rodgers might be joining us as well to add his thoughts as he race directs this wonderful production that we're putting on for you today. And we've have got about 3.5 minutes left in the warm-up session as we're seeing some of these drivers put in potentially full fuel and low fuel laps right now and on different tire compounds, just to sort of get a feel for the car that we're going to see. And as Felix actually brought up earlier, we might see some fireworks off the first lap in the first turn, as Watkins Glen definitely constricts down to that 90-degree turn one almost. And the other thing that we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a rolling start. Felix, how do you think the driver is going to handle that?
I hope it will go all fine. Obviously, it's not something we do often in the Formula Sim Racing championships. Normally, it's always a standing start. But I think rolling start shouldn't be too difficult for the drivers. It's pretty straightforward. When the game says go green, you go. So I think it should be fine. Shouldn't be too much different than standing start. Obviously, you won't have the problem that somebody stalls out. At least somebody can have a slow reaction to the lights going green. But it should go fine, I think. I hope.
Well, we're about 2 minutes away from finding that out, and yeah, we hope we get through turn one with no incident. But whatever happens, it happens, and that's just racing for you. So we're going to put the finishing touches here on warm up in about 2 minutes time. Felix, what do you feel like your keys to the race might be here at Watkins Glen going into this race?
I think it's a 30-lap race, so with a mandatory pit stop, and you need to go to the prime tires. I think the drivers that eventually were able to start on that prime tires will have the advantage in the strategy, obviously, because they can go longer in their first stint and then have the quicker tires with the lower fuel load, so be quicker eventually track. But I think track position is going to be really important, like we said in qualifying as well. So I think overtaking will happen for sure, but it will be difficult, especially for the guys that are very close to pace. So those guys might want to focus a bit more on the strategy than on track overtaking. Obviously, we would love to see some nice battles on track, and I'm sure we will. But I think to win the race, you don't need just the on-track battling. You also need a good strategy to be able to get your tires to the end of the race and have the good grip, and also have the track position to be able to get your lap times done.
And the only other thing that I'm a little unsure on is potentially fuel. Will they be having to take on a little bit of fuel to get to the end of this? I highly doubt it. I think we probably structured the race to be non-fuel related. But that's something to watch out. These drivers do have 8 mixtures to play with, so definitely something to watch out for. The only other thing that I can think of is potentially watching and looking to see if guys pull an undercut or an overcut early on to try and maximize it. If you can get a lot of track position, to me, you might be able to pull off and make an overcut work. Because the way the Watkins Glen pit lane is set up, it's a little bit dicey, not only entering sometimes but also exiting. So you should be able to have a little bit more of an advantage on track. But I am wondering if guys maybe try to pull an undercut, push as hard as they can on these option tires, and then come in, throw on the primes, and then manage from there the race. But we'll see. A lot of interesting strategies, and this being the first race of the year, we're going to see everything. So right now we just had the call to the grid, so everybody should be gridding up, and we are going to get this race off and running.
Yeah, we are drivers lining up in the pit lane to start their formation lap, so to say, to get the rolling start done.
Indeed, and we'll already having a little bit of a crazy issue there with Dionysus Farios there. Another car was on top of him, so hopefully no damage early on. But seems like we have roughly everybody rolling. Too wide in the pit lane might not work, gentlemen. So, just a thought. But yeah, it seems like we have everybody on server and rolling right now. So looking forward to a good race. I'll run us down the field right now. So we have Lorenzen Doherty on pole, Miguel de los Rios starting alongside in P2, Quentin Benoit P3, Ton van Egmond P4, Argenis Riera in P5, Mark Hutchinson P6, Roel Hoban P7, Jacob Reed in P8, Thomas Wack in P9, and Vladislav Pavlov in P10. Christian Lazaro in P11, Chris Cobb at P12, Thomas Lenz at P13, Tank Applegate P14, Andrei Boratovsky in P15, Alistair Long P16, Dionysus Ferreos in P17, Michael Wilson P18, Aliski Meisen in Meisen P19, Emerick Bolze in P20, Alaric Enslin in P21, and Terry Crawford rounding out our 22-car field starting in P22, as we are going to quickly be coming up here. I think we're coming through the heel of the boot right now, if I'm not mistaken, and we will be off and running here, Felix. So exciting to see how this start goes, and excited to see the start of the first race of the FSR IndyCar series for this year. Anything you'd like to add there, Felix?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I hope it's going to be a great race. All the drivers are now getting ready, double file. Safety car will be pulling in shortly, and Lawrence Doherty will be able to start this race with the rolling start.
As the safety car, pace car, is coming into the pits, across the pit line, and Lawrence Doherty now takes off, and that's our rolling start, and Doherty has a huge lead going into turn one. No issues there, as we have Quentin Benoit cooking it a little over into turn one, and he's going to lose 2 positions right off the bat, put him back to P5, as we have Roel Hoban, and I can hear contact in the back end of the field, as we have had Tank Applegate get into an issue with Alexi Meisen there, as we have 2 cars off into turn one, so not nearly as bad a carnage as what we could have seen, but unfortunately it's caused Tank Applegate and Alexi Meisen there their issues, as we are having some very hard racing and very bump non-open wheel like racing coming through the pack, as I just looked at Andrei Boratovsky there, as he was bumping into Dionysus, and Dionysus Farios there getting bumped out of the way by Christian Lazaro there. Cars running wide, still going into these corners, and I'll get you a full field rundown here once we get the first lap done, as I just want to make sure that everybody is updated on the action. We have a great 3-car battle. Oh, Thomas Lenz goes wide and overcooks it in the corner and spins out through the heel section of the boot, and he's going to have to get back on track and try and get himself in the right way, as Terry Crawford now, Tank Applegate, and Aliski Mize is still floundering in the back half of the field. Definitely some heavy damage on those cars, and as we complete the first lap, Lorenzen Doherty is in P1 still, Miguel de los Rios P2, Ton van Egert, or Van Egmond, sorry, Con von Egman is in P3. Argenis Riera, P4. Quentin Benoit has been shuffled back from his P3 position to a P4, but now putting Riera under massive amounts of pressure. We have Jacob Reed right behind Quentin Benoit in P6. Ruhlhoven in P7. Mark Hutchinson still in P8. Vladislav Pavlov and Chris Cobb both improved their positions. P9 for Pavlov and P10 for Cobb. Thomas Vach in P11. Andrea Boratovsky, P12. Dionysus Ferros in P13. Christian Lozano in P14. Michael Wilson, P15. Alistair Long, P16. America Balza in P17. Alaric Enslin in P18. And Thomas Lenz, P19. Terry Crawford, Tank Applegate, and Aliski Meisen, who still hasn't been able to make it back to the pits yet, are in P20, 21, and 22.
Yeah, it's been... sorry.
Semi-eventful. Semi-eventful.
Yeah, I think we've saw already some side-by-side action by, especially by Dionysius Faros and Christian Lazaro. They went side-by-side for a good 5-6 corners there in the first 2 laps, and they're still very close. However, right now I think the battle to watch is Quentin Benoit and Argenis Riera. However, Quentin is bottoming, or is on the limiter there, coming into the boot, and because of that wasn't able to pull along next to Argenis Riera, and now he also has to watch out from Jacob Reed from behind.
We also have a really great battle for P9 and P10 with Vladislav Pavlov, P9, and Chris Cobb in P10 trying to take it away from Pavlov. They were side by side going into the bus stop chicane area here at, or the bus stop here at Watkins Glen. And unfortunately, Chris Cobb on the outside wasn't able to make the maneuver stick. So we'll see if Cobb is able to maybe get his car back alongside Pavlov there and challenge for P9.
In the meantime, Lawrence Doherty already has pulled out a gap of 2.5 seconds. He is really quick here in the race so far. However, will he be able to keep up that pace? Will he be able to save his tires enough so that he can make it to the end of the race doing this pace as well?
Indeed. I mean, that's one of the strategy points we're going to have to take a hard look at. Do you want to run away with it right now and use up those soft tires as much as possible, then come in early and potentially switch to the prime tire while everybody's soft tires are wearing, but still able to set slightly quicker laps than you? Or do you save those soft tires as long as you can and then come in for the prime tires toward the end, sort of the halfway point, and see? It will be very interesting to see what happens and what sort of strategies we see going forward. As we still have it's roughly 0.6 of a second. No, my bad there. 0.4 of a second in between Vladislav Pavlov and Chris Cobb. Chris really working Vladislav over right now, seeing if he can't get him to make a mistake so he can get back up alongside and pass for position.
Yeah, Chris is just trying to find the gap to get past this car in front of him. However, isn't really able to find it and make a move. So making some slight mistakes, locking up a little bit and losing a bit of time because of that. Now a slow car on the right hand side on the start-finish straight here. Who is that? I think it's Tom van Egmond. Yeah, Tom van Egmond must have made a mistake. He got back quite a bit and is now under pressure by Christopher Cobb.
He definitely has. And yeah, he was running all the way up there in P4. I wonder if there was maybe an incident between him and oh no! Oh, huge crash! Quentin Benoit up and over into the bus stop area. Just took it too hot, and he's well off the racing line, but he will be out of this race for sure. He was flipping and turning and doing all sorts of somersaults, and not the type of thing you want to be doing in an IndyCar, unfortunately. Looks like he had an issue with Argenis Riera there, as Jacob Reed has been able to get himself up onto one of the podium place positions. But Argenis Riera there, back in P4, definitely having some had some issues there. As Mark Hutchinson now taking a look down Rule Hoban for P5, just not able to make it work. So Hutchinson's going to have to fall back and see if he can't mount another attack, another lap or two on Rule Hoban.
Yeah, a little bit of a train forming here behind Argenis Riera with Rule Hoban, Mark Hutchinson, Vladislav Pavlov and Christopher Cobb, all within a couple of seconds of each other.
Indeed, and I just think that maybe Riera just had a little bit of, or has a little bit of damage, or maybe even not a little bit, maybe a lot of bit of damage from that incident that occurred with Quentin Benoit, unfortunately. So that might be putting him on the back foot and allowing Rule Hoban to close in quickly now. Taking a look at his lap times. Yeah, he was almost forced, well, 3-ish seconds off of his lap times that he had been setting the last lap. So Argenis definitely having some issues as look back in the field and battling going. Oh, Alistair Long cooks it coming out of the toe of the boot and spins it around. And Alistair Long spun and facing the wrong way on the track, and Alistair Long calls it a day right there, unfortunately.
Mark Hutchinson as well turned around. He was in that battle with Argenis Riera, Rule Hoban, Christopher Cobb, and now turned around, lost a lot of positions, down to P10, and Christopher Cobb in P7 after also having overtaken Ron van Egmond now.
It has just been a crazy race thus far, Felix, to be certain, as we'll do a full field rundown now after 6 laps, working on 6 laps right now, as Lorenzen Doherty P1, Miguel de los Rios P2, Jacob Reed P3, Argenis Riera P4, Rule Hoban P5, Vladislav Pavlov P6, Chris Cobb P7, Tom van Egmond P8, Thomas Vach P9, Mark Hutchinson P10, Christian Lazaro P11, Andrea Boratovsky P12, Dionysus Farios P13, Thomas Lenz P14, and that's actually turning into a great battle right there. P14, 15, and 16. America Bolsey P15, Michael Wilson on the inside of Americ. But Americ will have the preferred line, but Michael Wilson able to pull out. So Michael Wilson now up to P15, Americ Bolsey and P16, and Terry Crawford, I think, is going to decide to call it a race, perhaps, as he's already a lap down. Nope, just working on a way to re-enter the track. He's P17. We have Alistair Long DNF'd, Alaric Enselin DNF'd, Tank Applegate 2 laps down, Quentin Benoit DNF with suspension, and Oleski Meisen there in P22, 5 laps down. We still have Lorenzen Doherty out in front right now with about a 4.5 second lead back to Miguel de los Rios. So Lorenz really dominating this race right now and doing a great job of controlling the race for himself, as Miguel de los Rios just not able to really mount much of a charge. Loses another 0.4 of a second to Lorenz through that sector. But Jacob Reed, I don't know if you look at some of these lap times here. Seems as though Jacob Reed is running as fast, if not. No, that was a little bit, about a half second off. Jacob Reed is from the guys up front there. But doing a great job there in P3, Jacob Reed is. holding station right now. Seems like a lot of the guys are running from about 4th place on back are running low 126s, and the guys out front are just able to pull mid to low 125s for the most part. So very interesting indeed to see that sort of a split with the field. As Jacob Reed coming up on the lap traffic of Alexei Meisen there. Gets past him, no problem. Great job for Alexei, letting him by. As we're starting to see Ton van Egmond reel back in Chris Cobb. And this is actually going to be a battle for position, I'm thinking very shortly, as Ton van Egmond has been able to get that car resettled back underneath him and potentially mount a challenge again for P6 and climb back up through the field. Ton van Egmond just not close enough just yet. It is getting very good drive off of the corner, at least to my eye he is.
Goes a bit wide, misses the apex on the inside of the last corner. Means he loses all exit speed and has no toe really to Chris Cobb.
And we've just had 2 more cars retire, most likely due to an accident. Michael Wilson and Christian Lazaro DNF'd right now. So that was probably due to an on-track incident, unfortunately. So again, these DW12 chassis and this IndyCar proving quite a challenge for some of these drivers, to be sure.
Yeah, definitely. So Christopher Cobb still fending off Ton van Egmond, obviously after he made that mistake, a bit easier for Christopher Cobb, but now seems that he's also closing in a bit to Vladislav Pavlov. 10 laps into this race, I think we will start to see pit stops happening in the next 5 laps, I would say. Usually the option tire runs a bit shorter than the prime tire does. So when we get to the halfway mark, you would expect most people to have switched to the harder compound.
Yeah, Chris Cobb is much quicker than Vladislav Pavlov through sector 1, almost 3/10 quicker through there, and then another 10th quicker roughly. Again, on top of Vladislav Pavlov. Oh no, sorry, that's Ton van Egmond being roughly a 10th quicker, and Chris Cobb through the 3rd sector there. So very evenly matched cars, all these, and Chris Cobb able to really, again, he closes in so much on the 1st sector, but just isn't able to carry as much speed and gain enough time through the 2nd sector here on Vladislav Pavlov. We'll see if that's maybe a concentration thing for Chris, or potentially it's a differentiation in setup. But we shall see going forward, as that gap to Ton van Egmond has definitely stabilized more and more, and almost grown, I believe, from Chris Cobb back to Ton. So he's going to have his work cut out for him to try and run down Chris.
Lawrence Doherty is still comfortably leading this race by almost 10 seconds now, and 20 seconds to the driver in P3, Jacob Reed. So absolutely domination by Lawrence Doherty so far here. Still 18 laps to go though, so let's see if he can keep this together, if he can keep consistent, be able to not make any mistakes, not end up in the wall or backwards.
Yeah, Lawrence Doherty is almost a half a second quicker than as we have Thomas Bach, I think, coming into the pits.
Yep. First pit stop of the day.
So this could be interesting to see how strategy plays out. So Thomas Bach coming into the pits, and I'm assuming he will go onto the harder compound tire. He does, so he is on the prime tire. He will be heading out as our first driver. Oh, is Roel Hoban has I don't know if it's a connection or what, but Roel Hoban has now DNF'd and is out of the race. But we'll definitely have to keep an eye on Thomas Bach here, as Tom van Egmond is also. Oh, fortunately, drivers dropping like flies right now, but we still have roughly, if I'm not mistaken, was that 16 drivers left?
Yeah.
On track. Yeah. So, some multiple laps down, but still continuing to race, and that's definitely what we want to see. As Lorenz Doherty gets it all sorts of messed up going through that bus stop area at Watkins Glen, really riding the curbs there. Like to see a little bit more tire on the tarmac, but able to control the car and keep it going. Doing a great job. So hopefully, maybe that's a sign of those option tires going off right there by Lorenz. But definitely we want to keep an eye on Thomas Bach's time, especially in comparison to what he's able to do now going forward, as he is the first driver to come in off of those option tires and put on the prime. So he should be good to go the rest of the distance for this race.
Again, Rivera is now slowly but steadily closing into Jacob Reed, who made a mistake in the last lap.
Indeed. Indeed, it cost him just about, what is that, 2 seconds-ish?
Yeah.
Roughly. Like a second and a half. But yeah, that's let Argenis Riera close right up on the back of Jacob Reed. And what I'm starting to notice, Felix, is you're able to reel in a guy if they make a mistake, but you're just not able to get enough muster to really pass him, as we have now Chris Cobb coming into the pits for his mandatory stop for today. So Chris will probably fall back to, I would say, somewhere around P8 or P9 after the stop. And I am way off on that. He will fall back to roughly around P10, as Thomas Bach is able to pass Chris Cobb there. And he will be coming out right in front of Thomas Lenz. So the two front runners on the prime tires right now, Thomas Bach and Chris Cobb right now, running P9 and P10, first two men to come in and make that stop. So it'll be very interesting, as Thomas Bach was able to perform the undercut. I think Thomas Bach just actually hit some debris.
Paraos is into the wall. End of his race as well.
And that's sad, because Dionysus was doing a great job of really keeping his car where it needed to be after those early battles, and really doing a great job of surviving out there. But unfortunately, just not able to be. So move Dionysus. Oh, as we have, I think that's Thomas Lenz, if I'm not mistaken, spun again on the toe of the boot. Spun there, and he's off and running again. But he won't lose any positions, but it's not the best outlook for him, as he will have the leader coming up behind him, as Lorenz Doherty is coming up behind Thomas Lenz. Oh, and Lorenz has a huge snap of oversteer there. And I got to think Lorenz is going to have to be coming into the pits this lap. Nope, he's going to stay out. Interesting. This will make it exactly halfway. So Lorenz's strategy is, I want to be on these option tires at least halfway through, if not potentially one more lap, and do the rest of the race on a set of primes. So very interesting. Is Miguel de los Rios into the pits now. So we should start seeing all of our front runners starting to come into the pits and hop off of these option tires here within, I've got to think, the next lap or two. So Thomas Lenz comes into the pits, makes his pit stop. Miguel de los Rios, Vladislav Pavlov coming into the pits. Miguel de los Rios coming out of the pits, just rolling right now, as indeed the track position gained from Miguel de los Rios just too much. As Chris Cobb has been able to actually get by Thomas Vach there. Vladislav Pavlov now out and running. Chris Cobb right now fighting with Andrea Borotovsky. So Chris Cobb really wants to get by him because just out in front, and he's not going to be able to make it as the man he was fighting with, Vladislav Pavlov. So really, Andrea Borotovsky there has really held up Chris Cobb a ton in being able to sort of leapfrog Vladislav Pavlov. So to me, Felix, and tell me if I'm wrong, it seems like coming in early, as we have our leader in Lorenz Doherty coming into the pits now, it seems to me that the overcut, I guess, the undercut not working as well.
Not exactly.
What was that?
I was just... Chris was trying to go around the outside on the exit of the bus stop chicane and still trying to go around the outside. He's just finding...
Oh, a little bit of a slide there from Chris. And Thomas Vach now is going to make a maneuver. Going to have to do it on the outside of the toe of the boot, and I don't think that's going to work, as Chris Cobb now still having the inside line on Borotovsky. I just think, Chris, you're just too far back. He closes so much under braking, but he's just not able to get as close as what he needs to get by Borotovsky there. As we have Argenis Riera coming into the pits, or coming out of the pits after his mandatory stop. But the thing is Borotovsky is really holding up Chris and putting him. Oh, Chris smokes it going into the final corner, and this is going to get walk to the inside on Chris Cobb. Thomas Vach on the inside. Can he outbrake Cobb? No, he can't. So he's going to slot in behind. Chris Cobb doing a great job of holding the racing line all the way through there, and Thomas Vach just not able to get enough braking power to get up alongside and pass Chris Cobb. But Chris has got to be thinking to himself, I have got to get by Borotovsky right now.
Yeah, he's just losing time behind Borotovsky here. Borotovsky goes wide into the bus stop. Very close again. Chris not able to get a move done and get alongside him. Borotovsky just able to keep the car pointed in the right direction, even though he missed the corner. Now, what is Chris gonna do? Pressure from behind, and he needs to get past the guy in front of him.
And I'm just taking a look. Yeah, Chris Cobb is losing 0.4 of a second per lap, it seems like, behind Thomas Vach to Andrea Borotovsky there, and Vladislav Pavlov is able to, once he crosses the line, I'll get you a time. Oh yeah, Chris Cobb is almost 4 seconds behind the lap times that Vladislav Pavlov is running. So Andrea Borotovsky right now just helping. Oh, as Thomas Vach is able to get by Chris Cobb. Chris Cobb there must have run wide. But yeah, Thomas Vach now is going to have to deal with Andrea Borotovsky there. But Vladislav Pavlov is just rubbing his hands together and going good, as he's able to pull away from this group right now. This is just really throwing a wrench into... as Borotovsky's run wide and does a good job of not coming back into Chris Cobb there. Good car control there, Borotovsky. So that issue has been hashed, and moved Borotovsky back to P9. He's still on those option tires, so he's definitely planning on running a longer stint than most on those option tires. Yeah, Chris Cobb right now going to have to do what he can to pull back in on Thomas Vach and get by him. Which I just think Vladislav Pavlov is just too far up the road right now for anybody to really reel him in. as we now have 15 cars in the race. Seem to have lost, if I'm not mistaken, Dionysus was the last one that we lost. But we'll get you a full field rundown as Mark Hutchinson into the pits right now, and Mark Hutchinson taking a very long first stint, almost 17 laps on those option tires. So we'll see where Mark Hutchinson can come out, and he's going to come right back out in P9 where he was. Chris Cobb able to get by Thomas Svach there, going into the bus stop. Oh, Thomas cuts back over, and Chris Cobb punts him. But Thomas Svach came right over back onto the racing line, or maybe that was a glitch error. But Chris Cobb's going to have heavy damage to the front part of his car, potentially suspension there. But Thomas Svach is now most likely going to have huge damage to his car. I switched just back and just saw Thomas Svach. He was alongside, and then all of a sudden Thomas Svach was right in front of Chris Cobb. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
It seemed like some sort of lag, that he lagged either in front of Chris or behind. Very weird what happened there. I'm not sure if it's a game problem or something with the server. But it ends up with Thomas Svach DNFing here as well, and Christopher Kolb. Surely he has to have some sort of damage after that incident.
I have to think so, but maybe not. Maybe lucky enough to get away with damage, with light or little damage. But I think you gotta hold station unless the damage makes the car undrivable. You gotta hold station in the position because you'll just lose too much if you come into the pits to change that up. Although he could, if he has to, come into the pits and go back onto a set of option tires. He has used both tire compounds, so interesting strategy wrinkle, but I think you need to stay out there as we have Mark Hutchinson now all over the back of Andrea Boratovsky there. Hutchinson on the outside, Boratovsky on the inside as they head to the bus stop. And Hutchinson thinks better, pulls in behind Boratovsky. Boratovsky keeping a good line through there, and Hutchinson unable to pass through the chicane there as Boratovsky now runs a little bit wide through that corner. Hutchinson's going to try the outside, heading into the actual boot section of the track. And the actual toe of the boot, Hutchinson's still on the outside of Boratovsky. As they come around, Hutchinson closes up quite nicely there on Boratovsky. Hutchinson should get a run. Boratovsky gets a better exit off of that corner as Hutchinson now onto the inside, locks up the right front tire there, and that's going to put him well back on Boratovsky, and he's just not going to be able to mount too much of a run unless Boratovsky makes a error. And we have Argenis Riera back into the pits, so we must have had an issue there. Is Vladislav Pavlov now up to P4, and we have oh no, Argenis is gonna have to reverse for his pit stop as oh no, this is a damage pit stop, and Chris Cobb coming in for damage as well, and he's gonna pull out as we had Meisen there, Aleski Meisen there coming in for his service stop, and Argenis Riera going to re-enter the track in 7th place, but Chris Cobb now into the pits. Definitely some damage on his car, as we'll take you back for the battle for 5th right now, as Mark Hutchinson, Andrea Boratovsky now still battling for 5th position, as Mark Hutchinson on the outside heading into the I guess the cuff of the boot as Hutchinson switches lines. Boratovsky on the inside for this next corner. Hutchinson, though, is going to try and hang it around the outside. Unable to do it. Does a little bit of a switchback maneuver on the inside of Boratovsky. It's going to be a drag race off the corner. Boratovsky and Hutchinson. Hutchinson has the inside line going into the heel of the boot. And Hutchinson is going to make this pass as Boratovsky has to run slightly wide. Hutchinson move him up to P5, and Andrea Boratovsky back to P6. It was a pretty good battle there.
Yeah, great racing by the both of the drivers, side by side, almost wheel banging along the straight. Great stuff to see, but something to note: Andrei Boratovsky hasn't pit yet. As I say that, he's coming into the pits right now to do his mandatory stop, but a very late stop. Only 8 laps remaining in this race.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's, unless he just really did not like how he performed on the option tire. or the prime tire. I guess that would be the only reason, but a very late stop there. Maybe some pit tactics or something got crossed there, but we shall see as Bortowski onto the prime tire now. So he'll be finishing this race. But really not a whole lot lost. He's going to get out in front of Chris Cobb. So not a whole lot net loss from Bortowski there. So it will be interesting as he comes in right behind our second place driver. And I know we haven't talked a whole lot about the sharp end of the field there, but Lorenz Doherty still leading this race by a significant margin now, almost 13.5 seconds over Miguel de los Rios. But these two drivers here have just really started on the front row together, and they've just been kind of the class of the field thus far. Jacob Reed in P3 right now, doing a great job holding station there. And behind him, Vladislav Pavlov, Mark Hutchinson in P5, Argenis Riera in P6, Andrea Bortowski in P7, Chris Cobb P8, Thomas Lenz P9, Americ Bolze in P10, Terry Crawford started last as he's able to get by Tank Applegate again. But Terry Crawford, who started last in the field, up to P11, so great drive for Terry, hanging in there tough. Tank Applegate, who was involved in some early incidents right now, or earlier incidents in the race, P12, and then Alexei Meisen there in P14, 6 laps down, involved in an early incident with Tank Applegate, and is our final running car on, well, 6 laps down. But that's our full field rundown right now, as indeed a lot of shakeups. A lot of shakeups indeed. And it almost seems like Bortowski is able on these prime rubber, able to run down Miguel de los Rios. He's closed that gap to second place car, though Bortowski being 1 lap down. Very interesting to see that pace difference right there.
Yeah, his tires are almost 8 laps fresher than the tires of Miguel de los Rios. So I guess that will translate in quite a lot of pace difference.
Well, I'm assuming so. Now, to my recollection in real life, what happens is these prime tires take about a lap to 2 laps to really come up to temperature and to come into that operating window. Not sure if that's modeled the same way here in rFactor 2, as Bortowski spins it around and Chris Cobb is able to get that P7 back. Bortowski spins it, and Jacob Reed, P3, almost has a little bit of an incident going by there, Bortowski. But Jacob Reed able to keep himself in the right direction, very close there. We'll see if maybe Bortowski comes in, maybe push those tires a little bit too far, but to my understanding, these tires have to come into a certain window in real life, and it usually takes 1.5 laps to 2 laps for these tires. But then once that happens, they start to grip up. Not the best, but they will last a long time. And once they do grip up, you'll be able to get very consistent lap times. So I'm not sure if that's modeled the exact same way in rFactor 2, but definitely something to look at as we go forward. Chris Cobb has a little bit of a lock of that. Oh, Mark Hutchinson has an issue. Mark Hutchinson's had an issue.
He is,
and it might be terminal.
Yeah,
and it might be terminal. I think he got it all wrong coming out of the final corner on the front stretch, and he lost his rear wing, and that's it for Mark. Unfortunately, Mark is out of the race. And that'll be a disappointment for him because he was running in the top 5 and really doing a great job of surviving, as we have about 5 laps left right now before the end. That's going to be heartbreak for Mark, but he'll bounce back, and we'll hope to see him in later IndyCar installments here at FSR in that lovely Feels Bad Guy livery theme. Fortunately, Mark Hutchinson feeling bad for himself right now, crashing out with about 6 laps to go, unfortunately. 7 laps to go for him. Take you to the sharp end of the field again. We have Lorenz Doherty still, P1, Miguel De Los Rios, P2, Jacob Reed, P3. That's your podium right now. Not a whole lot moving around. A lot of lap traffic interspersed with lead lap cars. Ooh, Argenis Riera gets a massive amount of oversteer coming out of the cuff of the back cuff of the boot there, going into the final corner here onto the front stretch. Really got it all sorts of crazy there. Argenis did, but still trying to hold strong there, holding on to a good P5 for Argenis Riera after qualifying roughly up into that area at the beginning of the race. So, Felix, it's been crazy so far, but what are your thoughts so far on this race?
Yeah, it's been a crazy race. Unfortunately, a lot of did not finishes because of either lag issues or just driver mistakes ending up in the wall. But we've seen some great racing between Christopher Kolb and Thomas Wach at the start of the race, between Dionysius Varos and I believe Christian Lazaro. So, in my opinion, a great start for the IndyCar series here at Watkins Glen. Great couple of battles we've seen. Obviously, Lorenz Doherty is dominating this race. That's great for him. Maybe not so great for all the action on track, because it might be a little bit boring having a 24-second lead over P2 and almost more than half a minute to P3. So maybe could have been a bit better at the front of the field, but in the midfield we've seen some great battling, which is great.
Yeah, the midfield has been really the jewel, I think, of this race thus far. A lot of evenly paced guys in very similar and evenly paced machinery, making it difficult for anybody to pull off a maneuver. But I guess we've got a few laps remaining right now, so I don't want to take up too much time. But looking to Road Atlanta, do you think this is going to maybe play into Lorenz's strength, or do you think any other drivers that we've seen here today might be able to take advantage and really push the envelope and take a challenge to Lorenz Doherty, Miguel De Los Santos, and Jacob Reed?
To be honest, I don't really know. Lorenz is a quick driver. We've seen that today for sure, but in the regular series of Formula Sim Racing earlier this year, we've seen that Lorenz is a quick driver, but he's also prone to mistakes. Today he's been almost flawless, done a great race, but in the Ace series, I believe he raced in, he had some times where he was very quick, able to win the race if he done a good race, no mistakes, but then just made that mistake, either had an issue with his computer or his game, or just made mistakes and ended up not being able to finish first or finish at all. So that will come into play as well in this series, I think, unless he's been able to really improve himself. So far he's been flawless, like I said, so maybe somebody will be able to challenge him in Road Atlanta. Maybe he will be very dominant again. We'll have to wait and see, to be honest.
Road Atlanta, very reminiscent, I feel, of the first sector and potentially last sector here at Watkins Glen. So it might play into his hands. It may not, as Lorenz Doherty is going to have basically one more lap, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yeah, after this lap, he's got one more lap.
After this lap. Yeah, one more lap left to go. So he'll put a cap definitely on this day, banner day for Lorenz. Really winning in, well, we won't give him the win yet, but really dominating this race from start to finish. So definitely a great job to him there. As I'm just going to take a quick look through the field and see if we have anybody within striking distance of each other. 4 cars on the lead lap too, which is crazy. Oh, as Vladislav Pavlov runs wide. Coming out of that long right-hand turn after the chicane there. But Pavlov's still able to keep it on the tarmac and able to keep the car in the right direction with the right speed application applied. As Andrei Boratovsky cooks up that left front tire coming onto the front stretch there. As we'll finish Lorenz Doherty on his final lap for the rest of the race right here, as he comes through this. I believe that was the toe of the boot, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So Lorenz almost completely done with this lap as he comes through the heel. Making these turn names up as I go along, so just as he's coming through the cuff of the boot, the back cuff, and indeed the penultimate corner right there, as he will be rounding the final corner here at Watkins Glen International Raceway. Does a great job, weaves side to side as he crosses the start-finish line. First place, Lorenz Doherty, taking the maiden, well, I don't know if it's his maiden, but taking the first win of the FSR IndyCar Series. Lorenz Doherty, P1 thus far, as now we follow along with Miguel de los Rios just onto the front stretch there, doing a great job bringing it home in P2. Jacob Reed was closing, though, on Miguel de los Rios, and I think in another 5 or 6 laps, Jacob Reed might have caught him, or caught Miguel de los Rios. But Jacob Reed, P3, doing some celebratory donuts, which he should. He ran a great race, a controlled race, was able to get to the front there early on due to some incidents, but mostly keeping himself out of trouble. So great job there to Jacob Reed. Vladislav Pavlov coming across, finishing in P4, a final car on the lead lap, almost a minute behind Lorenz Doherty, but just a great job there. We'll take you on a full field rundown, preliminary right now, unofficial obviously, but Lorenz Doherty P1, Miguel de los Rios P2, Jacob Reed P3, Vladislav Pavlov P4, Argenis Riera finishing 1 lap down at P5, Chris Cobb P6, 1 lap down, Andrea Boratovsky 1 lap down in P7, Ayermik Bolze 1 lap down in P8. Great job from Amerik. Thomas Lenz 2 laps down in P9. Terry Crawford 2 laps down P10, but from his starting position of 22nd, that was a great job by Terry Crawford to get up that high and keep himself out of trouble in the mid to later stages of the race. Tank Applegate involved in issues early on. We'll hope to see him rebound at Road Atlanta, P12, 3 laps down. Oleski Meisen also involved in that issue with Tank Applegate, if I'm not incorrect, finishing P12, 6 laps down. For our non-runners, Mark Hutchinson, P13, Thomas Vach, P14, Dionysus Farios, P15, Ton van Egmen, P16, Roel Huben, P17, Michael Wilson, P18, Christian Lazaro, P19, Alistair Long, P20, Alaric Enslin, P21, and Quentin Benoit finishing in the final position, P2. Well, Felix, that was a great race. A little stale toward the end, but it's to be expected when you have 12 cars left, and they are interspersed on such a large track like Watkins Glen can be. Very exciting early on. Any thoughts on that outside of there, on what we can expect maybe going forward?
Yeah, like we said already before the end of the race, we saw some great battles in the midfield today, especially at the start and the middle of the race. Like you said, in the end, it got a bit stale, but still, great couple of battles we've seen. Obviously, a very dominant performance by Lawrence Doherty. Miguel de los Rios did a great job to also finish second and Jacob Breed in third. So good drive by all the top 3 drivers. Points obviously go down all the way to, I believe, P8 or P25 even. So all the drivers at least get some points. Lawrence will get 50 points. And P2 will get 42, if I am not mistaken. 40,
I believe
actually.
Lawrence should get 2 extra points for pole and fastest lap as well. But
exactly. So yeah, Lawrence definitely taking a good lead in the championship. There is a total of there's a total of how many races?
I think we have 5, if I'm not mistaken.
That could be very correct. Let's take a quick look to be sure. Yes, we have 5 races. Watkins Glen today, obviously. Then Road Atlanta will be in 2 weeks' time. Then 1 week after that, we've got Mid-Ohio. Then 2 weeks after that, we've got Mosport. And then another week after that, we've got the final race at Indianapolis. So yeah, great couple of races, and I think it's time to close this one off for today.
Oh, definitely, Felix, and it's been great to be able to commentate on this race. I'm a huge fan of IndyCar, and to have FSR have an IndyCar series is just great. I had a great time and really enjoyed this whole thing. Definitely excited to see what happens at Road Atlanta, Mid-Ohio, Mosport, and obviously my favorite track, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I believe we're going to be running the GP 2012 or 2014 GP layout there. But definitely really excited for the rest of the season coming up, and look forward to working with you again here, Felix. And great race we had today.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, for myself, for Felix, for Cameron, for all the drivers here at FSR, thank you for joining us for our IndyCar Series broadcast here at Watkins Glen International. And we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time at Road Atlanta. Be there, same time, same rules, same everything. Feel free to join. Stop over the FSR website, join. If you're interested in this sort of racing, join up, RSVP, get involved, do whatever you can to get involved in this. And we'll hope to see you in 2 weeks' time at Road Atlanta. So for myself, Felix, Cameron, and everybody here at FSR, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Yeah.